Hello and welcome to another Magic 2015 gameplay. Today we're taking another look at green-white or Selesnya tokens, and the recent expansions did add a few cards that fit nicely into this deck, one of them being a Crusader of Odric, power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, and Selesnya tokens already trying to go wide with tokens, so this fits perfectly into the deck. Single white mana cost is easier to cast than the Scion of the Wild, which is almost identical to Crusader, which had a double green in its casting cost, so single white's easier to cast, plus the soldier creature type is actually relevant in this deck, because we're also running a Captain of the Watch, another powerful token generator, anthem effect for soldiers, also giving them vigilance, and just a very powerful card all around that we now also get to play with in our Selesnya tokens deck. So let's take a quick look at all the cards. You probably know the deck by now. We've got Raise the Alarm, an instant speed token generator making soldiers, which is again relevant, just a very powerful token generator. Then we've got Brimaz, just a very powerful card, especially in this deck. The tokens having vigilance means you can still use them for convoke purposes after attacking, just a very powerful threat. Then we've got Mantra of the Meek as a card advantage engine, and most of your creatures are power 2 or less, so you'll get to pay 1 to draw an extra card. Raise the Alarm with 4 mana means you also get to draw 2, just a very good card, also a soldier, which is nice. Then we've got Banisher Priest as a necessary evil. We just need a couple removal spells, and we're running Banisher Priest over something like Arrest or over something like Reprisal, because it's still a creature that can attack, convoke out creatures, and do other stuff. Then we've got the Crusader, of course. We've got Attended Knight as a 3-drop that makes a 1/1 soldier token, so you get those 2 bodies for the cost of 1 card, so it helps out with having lots of creatures in play, helps convoke, and a 2/2 first striker is actually not terrible, as it can block creatures like Goblin Rebel Master all day long. Moving on, we have Baneslayer Angel, just a staple in any white deck, and no difference here. Captain of the Watch, another powerful 6-drop. We don't want to have too many expensive cards, but I think Captain of the Watch is certainly worth running in a tokens deck, at least a tokens deck that's running 24 lands. Then we've got Triplicate Spirits, it costs 6 mana, but never gonna really cost 6 mana thanks to Convoke. You can tap creatures to help pay the mana cost, so you can cast this as early as turn 4 in this deck. We don't have any 1-drops, so we don't get to live the dream of 1-drop into Raise the Alarm into Triplicate Spirits, but it's still very powerful, and you should play all 4 copies. We've got Jade Mage as a late game token generator and mana sink. It's pretty aggressive as a 2-drop, can attack, but usually gets blanked by those Satyr Wayfinders or Elvish Visionaries, but still being able to convoke and make tokens later in the game is pretty valuable. Then we've got Beastmaster Ascension as our overrun / finisher effect. Usually you want to keep this in hand until you do have enough creatures to activate this at once. And the +1/+1 counters actually also get doubled by Doubling Season, but let's get there in a minute. We've got Mycoloth first, another very powerful finisher. You can devour a bunch of tokens to put +1/+1 counters ×2 on Mycoloth, and then you get to make Sapperling tokens on your upkeep, equal to the +1/+1 counters on Mycoloth. So usually eating 1 or 2 tokens is good enough. You don't have to go all in on him if you expect your opponent to have some sort of removal spell. And once you start generating Sapperling tokens, it's pretty easy to take over the game. And the +1/+1 counters combo also with Doubling Season, only running 1 because it is a do-nothing enchantment after all. It does nothing when you play it, it does need some support, some cards that make tokens afterwards. It's still very powerful, so it doubles all the creature tokens you get, and it also doubles all the +1/+1 counters you get. So Beastmaster Ascension gets doubled, so you can activate it faster. And Mycoloth can run out of control pretty easily once you've got a Doubling Season in play and you sacrifice a bunch of creatures. Those counters get doubled, the tokens get doubled, everything's doubled, and you should be able to win the game from there. Then we've got Selesnya Evangel, one of the more important token generators in the deck. because it's an effect that only costs 1 and tapping an untapped creature, so it's a very consistent stream of Sapling tokens to provide chump blockers early on if you're under aggression from the opponent, and then later on you can just start overwhelming the opponent with Sapling tokens, maybe drop a Beastmaster Ascension and go from there. So very powerful token generator since it's so cheap to activate. And then finally 1 Sigil Blessing just to try and get people. A mini overrun effect giving 1 creature +3/+3 and the other ones +1/+1. Pretty powerful, but you do need to have a board state for this to do anything, of course. So 1 Sigil Blessing, then our mana base, we're running the 4 Selesnya Guildgate. Feel free to swap this out with any tri-land that makes green or white if that's your thing. Then we've got Seaside Citadels, 3 of them, to get more double lands in this deck, because we do have some steep mana requirements. Only running 6 forests, because we have more white cards and double white cards, so we need 11 plains. Alright, let's jump into some games. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand. We're on the play and we have double Attended Knight. We do need a 3rd land, but I think this is keepable. We will be able to cast this Triplicate Spirits thanks to these Attended Knights. We have a Beastmaster Ascension as a win condition. This Captain of the Watch might not get out very soon, but that's not too bad. Let's lead with the plains, I guess. But I don't think it really matters here. Alright, against the blue-black, leading with Dimir Guildgate. And there's our 2nd white source, as well as our 3rd land, and I guess we don't have to show our opponent we're playing green yet, so let's just play the plains and pause the turn. Alright, so our opponent's at least playing as per colors, black, white and blue. And another Attended Knight is not terrible actually, so let's lead with 1, pause a turn. Next turn we play a 2nd one, and a turn after we can probably play Triplicate Spirits. Mind Rot, alright, so this is not too difficult. I think Captain of the Watch is an easy pick, and I don't think we need the 3rd Attended Knight. So, alright, our opponent spending 1 card against our 2 cards, so it is a form of card advantage. Of course, the disadvantage for the opponent here is that he did not affect the board in any way, so we get to keep attacking and developing our board. So let's go ahead and attack. Although now that we did draw our 4th land, we could also just go plains Triplicate Spirits with Convoke, which I don't hate. The problem is that even with Triplicate Spirits, we won't get to activate the Beastmaster Ascension in one go. We can also consider playing around a 2nd Mind Rot, given that our opponent did show it to us. So this is interesting. I think, given that our opponent showed us Mind Rot and he might have another one, I want to play the Attended Knight this turn, keep the plains in hand, not played out. So if our opponent does have a 2nd Mind Rot, we get to keep either the Beastmaster Ascension or the Triplicate Spirits. And the other advantage is that we do get some damage in this way. Because if we do want to play Triplicate Spirits, we would have to play the land, and then our opponent does get to make us discard the Beastmaster Ascension and the Attended Knight. So let's just go ahead and pause the turn. We could get punished if we draw Baneslayer Angel into a land that we then can't play on time. But I think we've got enough things going on here. So our opponent did have another Mind Rot. And actually I think I discard the Triplicate Spirits just because As Per Colors doesn't have a ton of removal, certainly no sweepers. And Beastmaster Ascension will get activated, I'm pretty sure. So let's go ahead and discard those. just because getting an active Beastmaster Ascension is pretty difficult to beat, and we will get to activate it in 2 attacks. And there we go, we draw another Triplicate Spirits, but I think we still just play out the Beastmaster Ascension here. Seems more powerful. Our opponent could have enchantment removal, which is one of the disadvantages, of course, of playing out the Beastmaster Ascension without actually triggering it, as we do need 7 counters and we only have 4. But there's not a ton of cheap enchantment removal, and if our opponent spends an entire turn removing it, then we're still fine with that. So it's on the opponent to find an answer here. Needs to at least remove 2 creatures if he wants to prevent this from triggering. Think twice means he probably does not have an answer in hand. Could have double Vapor Snag, but then he would probably cast it right now. Alright, so I think we just attack here and see what happens. Alright, so we trigger the Beastmaster Ascension and our opponent needs 2 bounce spells, and even then he's dead, so yeah. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand here. It is pretty land heavy with 5 lands. We are on the draw, but we do have Jade Mage plus Doubling Season, which is a pretty powerful late game combo. So I think I just want to keep this just to see what happens. If we draw one of our 6 drops, this hand gets pretty powerful. Not great against early aggression, but Selesnya Evangel is a pretty good draw. Still leading with our tapped land here. Opponent on red, let's find out if he has a 2-drop creature here. Alright, blue-red could be Kilnfiend, which is not a very good matchup for Selesnya. And there it is, Kilnfiend, as we don't have basically any removal in this deck, so we can't really interact with the Kilnfiend, and we can't really raise a Kilnfiend if our opponent has the right amount of instants and sorceries. So we are in trouble. I think we play out the Jade Mage here, just to try and trade with the Kilnfiend. Although that's probably not gonna happen, and if we don't get to trade, then playing the Evangel first is obviously the right play, because then we get to play Jade Mage next turn and activate the Evangel in the same turn. If our opponent has a shock, then obviously he's just gonna shock the first target he sees. I'm gonna go ahead and play the Evangel anyways. Just hope our opponent doesn't have the shock here. And if he doesn't, then we do get to make a token next turn after playing the Jade Mage. And if he does, then he does. And we still have a Jade Mage which can make a token every turn. But yeah, if our opponent has a decent hand, it's gonna be very difficult for us to win this one. We basically need to draw something like a Tended Knight and 2 Triplicate Spirits here. But as long as our opponent can make his Kilnfiend unblockable 1 or 2 times, we're staring down quite a bit of damage. Third land, is this a Gutter Snipe? It's a Young Pyromancer, which is probably worse. If he also has a shock here, we are very much in trouble. No attack, alright. Well, maybe it's just setting up. But I'm happy enough playing out the Jade Mage here and passing the turn. Don't need to activate it right away. We can always respond. And now we have a 1/2 blocker that could block 1/1s, for example, although probably not going to be too relevant. But we also don't want to tap down the Jade Mage if we can avoid it, as it could still trade with Kilnfiend. And if our opponent does send in the Kilnfiend, I will certainly block with the Jade Mage. Does it come in or not? Interesting. Also sending in a Young Pyromancer here. Seems aggressive. Alright. I'll gladly block here. And then activate Selesnya Evangel, tapping the Jade Mage, and trying to trade here with the Kiln Fiend. We still have a creature we can tap with the Evangel, and we got rid of a Kiln Fiend, which is a pretty big threat. Alright, this is nice, so we can play another untapped land since we do have another one for the turn 5 doubling season. We get to play the Attended Knight and still activate the Evangel. We are not the aggressor at this point, so staying back on defense. And if this Evangel survives a couple turns, we could be able to raise the Young Pyromancer's token generation, which is unheard of. 5 lands, demolish. Well, that's gonna prevent us from... No, that's just a destroy target land. So let's go ahead and use that land right now. I guess we want to keep the soldiers alive for our Captain of the Watch, so let's tap them down so we don't have to block with them. Opponent destroying our lands, which is not actually a big deal. Won't get to play Doubling Season next turn, but that means we just get to play a tap land and activate the Evangel. And this is not Tectonic Rift, so the other destruction land would prevent us from blocking, but that's not the case, so our opponent probably has the other one as well in his deck. Now we draw Brimaz, which unfortunately we can't cast because we don't have double white in play, but that's fine. Let's just play Seaside Citadel and pass the turn. We could attack with the Attended Knight, but I think I would rather have it on defense for one more turn. Yeah, I'll just keep it on defense for now. Pass the turn. Let's see what the opponent has. 6 land. Could be something like a Charmbreaker Devils. There it is. Alright, so our opponent's gonna try and get back his Krankos command or his land destruction spell. And he's gonna try and destroy all our lands, which is not very nice of him. But we will be able to drop our Doubling Season before that happens. And blue-red is gonna have a hard time removing Doubling Season. And I think, yeah, we could take a turn casting Brimaz and activating the Evangel, playing another tap land. Actually, that's not terrible, because even if our opponent does destroy a land, we still have the 5th untapped land. Only downside is we start doubling a turn later. But I think this sequencing of playing Brimaz here actually works out a little better, just because we get to play another white source, so the land destruction is actually not that bad for us. And we still get to activate the Evangel. Now obviously we can't attack anymore with the Attended Knight with Charmbreaker in play. So yeah, we will need to start making a large army as quickly as possible here, because the card advantage from Charmbreaker Devils is gonna start becoming a problem. Opponent got back Krankos command, makes an additional token with the Pyromancer. Warden of Evo's Isle, alright, so our opponent must have some sort of flyers in his deck. Does he attack? 1 card left. We don't know what it is, but I don't think it's a Vapor Snag, otherwise he would attack here. Alright, he does send in with everyone. Interesting. So we can block with the Evangel on a 1/1, activate it, so I think I'll just jump block the Devils for now, just in case our opponent does have Vapor Snag as his last card, so we don't get blown out. We can put the Attended Knight... I think I'll block with a token here. Although if he does have Vapor Snag, I would rather block like that. Like this, like this, like this, oh, like this and like this. Just jumping for now. And then we still get to activate the Evangel, tapping our soldier, I guess. So yeah, our opponent loses all his creatures, we lose a bunch of tokens. And we chump the devils. But I think we can take care of the devils next turn if he wants to attack again. Alright, perfect, so we get to play Doubling Season. And we could attack here. Only downside is our opponent would get to kill the Brimaz. I think we can pause the turn here. Let's see, our opponent could get back Command or Demolish. I would rather have him get back the Demolish, of course, since it doesn't do anything. If he gets back Command, I think we can just start making more and more tokens every turn. If we do attack now, we do get rid of the Warden, so our opponent doesn't have a flyer. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and attack with the Brimaz here, since we do get 2 tokens thanks to Doubling Season. And if he wants to trade the Warden plus a token for Brimaz, that's fine. But looks like he's just gonna chump here, which is fine. We could tap the Evangel right now, and I think I'll do it. Tapping one of the tokens that's gonna die. So now we have 4 power to maybe block the Charmbreaker Devils. I'm not gonna put the Brimaz in front. Opponent gets back Kranko's Command, alright, so the better of the 2 cards there. We could still top deck our Captain of the Watch, which would be pretty good here. Opponent 2 cards, 2 unknowns. I don't think he's running Anger of the Gods in this deck. Shock, pretty good, he's gonna take care of the Evangel, I'm guessing, since that's the problematic card right now for the opponent. Instead, he's electing to kill the Attendant Knight, so he's trying to get in some damage. Could have the card making his devils unblockable, but looks like that's not the case. So given that I don't want to trade Brimaz for the devils, opponent left only 2 goblins back, I'm just gonna chump again. And yeah, start generating value from the Evangel plus the Brimaz. Our opponent clearly does not have a bounce spell, otherwise he would not have killed the Attendant Knight, and there's Captain of the Watch. So yeah, this is pretty brutal. We get to play the Captain of the Watch main phase because the cat soldiers are soldiers, so they get pumped by the Captain. And we still get to activate the Evangel as well, so we get to do everything here. Make 6 tokens thanks to Doubling Season. Let's just attack with Brimaz and the sampling tokens here. And we can still activate the Evangel, tapping down one of the Vigilant Soldiers. So yeah, pretty nice top deck there. I guess Anger of the Gods would still be pretty bad for us, although Brimaz would still survive. But our opponent looks like he's more of an aggressive deck, and Young Pyromancer doesn't really mix well with Anger of the Gods. So let's see what he gets back. It's the Kranko's Command yet again, but now we don't really care about it. One of his unknowns was a Young Pyromancer, so that's not a problem. Kranko's Command. So now we just get to block and kill the devils. Alright, just sending in the flyer, which is fine. And we get to activate the Evangel. And let's see, do we have lethal? Well, Triplicate Spirits not bad again. Let's see, your opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blockers. We have 5. So let's just send in everyone except for the captain and the Evangel. Or I guess, so Brimaz getting an additional token here that's attacking will mean we do have lethal unless our opponent has a bounce spell. But given that we still have Triplicate Spirits as blockers, we don't really have to play around that. So opponent blocks, but thanks to the 2 cat soldiers we do have lethal. So let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look here. 5 lands, Crusader and Doubling Season on the play. Not a great hand as these 2 cards don't actually combo without any token generators. 1 land is not gonna do it. Alright, guess this'll have to do. Does have some powerful cards in it, so all it needs is more lands, preferably green sources. If we do draw a 3rd land, we do get to go Raise Alarm into Crusader, into possibly Triplicate Spirits. Alright, there's the green land. So let's play the planes, pause a turn, end of turn raise, into Crusader. So let's cast our raise. Opponent did not have any 2-drops, could have a shock. So let's attack first. And then play the Crusader here. And hope our opponent does not have Anger of the Gods here. Alright, Swamp is not a mountain. Could still have removal for the Crusader, but that's not as bad as losing our entire board. And instead it's a Cultivate, so your opponent's gonna ramp a bit to play a bigger creature or removal spell next turn. But meanwhile we get to do some damage with our Crusader. Alright, double Swamp, interesting. Another Triplicate Spirits. So we do have some options here. Could just cast a Triplicate Spirits, but then we don't get to attack. I think I just like playing Jade Mage and attacking for 6. Although playing Triplicate Spirits is pretty sweet here. You know what? Let's go for the bigger play here. So, if our Crusader survives, we could be looking at quite a bit of damage next turn. And I don't think there's any blocker our opponent could play that really stops the Crusader, unless it has Death Touch. Bloodgas, not gonna block the Crusader, as it can't even block. And opponent can't play Anger of the Gods here. So yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. One short of activating the Beastmaster Ascension. Not sure what the opponent's thinking about here. Could have... Alright, Fling. Gonna take down a Spirit token. That works. And Attended Knight is actually a pretty good draw. So we can play it. We'll have 7 for next turn. Get to deal 11 now. Yeah, it seems pretty great. Could also see playing the Triplicate Spirits because Attended Knight recovers better from an Anger of the Gods. But I don't think our opponent has one. And we do still have a Jade Mage. If our opponent does. Could also cast this other one. But then we only get to deal 10. Given that we're all in and not playing around Anger of the Gods, might as well not play around Anger of the Gods properly. Opponent could have, given that he's playing Fling, Act of Treason into his own Fling, but we do have blockers still, so not too worried about it. Alright, another land, gets back Bloodcast. Charmbreaker Devils is not gonna do it. So yeah, let's just drop down Beastmaster Ascension. Or this other one. And I would say a pretty decent mulligan to 6. Our opponent not playing Anger of the Gods certainly helped. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand, which looks acceptable. We've got turn 2 Evangel into turn 3 Brimaz, with Beastmaster Ascension for the long run, certainly keeping. Up against a mysterious opponent. Let's pause a turn. So I think this deck can handle even a mono red opener, thanks to Brimaz. There we see our one-off Sigil Blessing. So let's go ahead and play the Evangel. Wow. I think we should be a little bit worried. So opponent on Junt colors so far, could be more than those colors. Mountain, alright. Does not shock the Evangel. And we did draw a Raise Alarm. But I think we're just gonna play Brimaz here. Yeah. I mean, we could go Raise Alarm, activate the Evangel, which is not bad. But there's not many removal spells that deal with Brimaz if we already have a creature in play. So I think I'll just go for the more powerful option. Since Ground Assault next turn doesn't even kill it, would have to be Augur Spree or something. Certainly could have it. Instead it's Rabblemaster, which is not really very good against a Brimaz, so we get to block the token. And we still get to smash with Brimaz. If our opponent blocks, we have a Sigil Blessing. So we're in a pretty good spot. Also have Beastmaster Ascension. So let's see, 4th land. I think we just smash with Brimaz and the token. Then play Raise Alarm, activate. I mean, our opponent is going to block the 1/1 with the Rabblemaster. Question is, do we want to spend our Sigil Blessing? Actually, I think we don't, just because this could save us from burn. If our opponent tries to kill one of our creatures. And we will also want to play this when we have more creatures in play. So I'm just going to attack with Brimaz. Might as well send in this one, since we're getting another one. And then I'm just going to sit on this Raise Alarm and Sigil Blessing, plus an activation. And if our opponent tries to... Alright, did not block with the Rabblemaster there, so maybe playing around a Sigil Blessing. 4 mana. Anger of the Gods would not be the end of the world, since we still keep Brimaz. Blasting Station, however, is not a card I was planning around. Works pretty well with a Rabblemaster. Alright, so he gets to shoot down one of our tokens if he wants to. And I guess we're just going to let him. That's fine. Could have tapped it with the Evangel, but We have plenty of creatures to tap. Opponent goes to end step. Yep, let's cast Raise the Alarm. And let's activate the Evangel. So let's see, we've got 6. So we get to attack with Brimaz, so we do have 7 creatures attacking. But the token we get from Brimaz won't actually trigger the Beastmaster Ascension, so we'll only have 6 attacking creatures. But thanks to the Sigil Blessing, we still should have enough for lethal here. So I'm just going to send in everyone. Alright, Undying Evil, I guess, saves the Rebel Master, but we still get to trigger Beastmaster Ascension. Our opponent's maybe a bit late on the trigger there. So yeah, let's just play Sigil Blessing, and this should be enough. Alright, so it didn't even really need the Beastmaster Ascension there. And yeah, turn 3 Brimaz turns out is pretty powerful. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look here. Only 1 land, so let's ship this one back. Huh. Well, this is unfortunate. 2 of our 6 drops, only 3 lands, no green. So I think we go down to 6. Another Captain Opener, not great, but at least we do have an Evangel we can cast. So let's keep this and pass the turn. We will need to draw some relevant cards here if we want to survive the early game. Opponent leads with Opulent Palace. Alright, there's a card we could cast eventually. Would like to draw another creature so we can start activating the Evangel. Otherwise we're looking at a turn 5 Triplicate Spirits, which is not really exciting. Golgari Guildgate, their opponent slowly developing his mana base. Alright, there's a Crusader, I guess that'll do. We get to attack. Just in case our opponent has an Ulcerate he might want to use now. But most people don't play that card. Let's play Crusader and find out if that one stays alive. It does. So let's see, next turn we could go Plains Triplicate Spirits. We could also tap down the Crusader to make a token with the Evangel, but that does not seem exciting. So I'd rather just go for the Triplicate Spirits. If we draw a cheap creature, we can play that and tap down that same creature with the Evangel. Let's see, opponent revealing 2 creatures, including a Nemesis, so spider spawning could be a problem. Alright, so no creatures, so I'll just go for the Triplicate Spirits here. Grow our Crusader. And hope our opponent does not have a big spider spawning in 2 turns. Captain of the Watch will be pretty nice with the Crusader, of course. Both being soldiers. Also this one getting Vigilance. Means we also get it on defense. 4 lands from the opponent. If he attacks, I'm not gonna block, because he just wants more creatures in the graveyard. And a Grave Digger, alright. Getting back, probably, alright, getting back the Assistant. So once more graveyard fuel. But that means that next turn he's unlikely to play a spider spawning. So let's see here. I think I'm just going to play the Guildgate, activate the Evangel, and attack. Question is, who do we attack with? I think we just sending 2 spirits, tapping down the 3rd one. Could also just send in the 3 spirits and the Crusader, but then our opponent could trade for the Crusader, so that's bad. So just gonna do this. Not pump the Crusader yet. Opponent could still try and double block. And he does. But we still get to pump it by tapping our spirits. Guess I should have tapped the white source there. So our 6/6 survives. Get to play the Guildgate and pause a turn. So maybe your opponent is gonna cast the spider spawning after all, now that he has 3 creatures in the graveyard. Nope, a tap land into another assistant. And let's see what he gets. Alright, there's a spider spawning, but does cost 7 when he wants to flash it back. So we're in a pretty good spot here. This Crusader pretty much requiring a chump block every turn from the opponent. And we still get to play our captain here. So this is gonna be a giant Crusader. Opponent has to block this one. Still takes 5. And I'm not worried about trading away the Evangel here, because our opponent is pretty much forced to block the Crusader. Alright, goes to 12. No sweepers in black, green, blue. So, yeah, just gonna have to play a spider spawning here, which will make him 5 spider tokens. Which is not terrible, but we have 2/2 soldiers in play. Alright, the Tended Knight is nice. So, I guess we just play this one to pump the Crusader, just in case our opponent doesn't block it. So, a block here for sure. Do we send in the spirits is a question. I think we do. I think the only one we don't send in is the captain, although if our opponent triple blocks a captain, block 2, then he still takes 5, 6, 7. I guess I won't send in the captain then. Send in the rest. And I can block whatever would die to make a token with the Evangel and then play the other Evangel. Alright, our opponent is gonna eat the spirits here. Let's tap down. I guess we don't have to use this one yet. Play the other Evangel, pause the turn. Our opponent does still have spiders in play here, so he will get to make even more spiders. But we still have pretty big creatures here. A Beastmaster Ascension at any point wins us a game. Another Captain of the Watch would be pretty great. Sigil Blessing also nice. Lots of good cards we can draw. And I think pretty much the only thing our opponent can do here is play another spider spawning. So let's go ahead and activate this one. Opponent has 9 spiders in play. Let's see. So, for sure attacking with Crusader. I don't really want to attack with the Soldier, because our opponent can double block, double block, double block, double block. But our opponent does have another spider spawning in the yard. I think we just attack with the Crusader. I think we just send in a Crusader here. Make him block 1. and try to build up our board some more. No need to show him our last card. I think our opponent has to play the other spider spawning here. Unless it's got another stabilizing 7-drop like Plaka Worm. Alright, there's the other spider spawning. So let's go ahead and make some more tokens. Alright, and there's the Beastmaster Ascension. Right on time. So, yep, let's just send in everyone. Not gonna think about this too much. They all get +5/+5.